my channel. I'm Jason White, and this is Jason's Weird Reads, and today I'm going to be doing a recent reads from the Hip edition, where, if you don't know what From the Hip is, this is where the structure of this video is where I just talk with you for a little bit about things that are going on in my life, typically things that are going to affect the channel, and then I go into what I am reading currently and what I have read in the last month. So it's sort of like a June wrap-up video in a sense. So it is finally summer. Summer is here and I am feeling it. I'm not a big fan of the extreme heat, especially where I live, where the heat, it gets really humid. The humidity is what kills you, honestly. You can be sitting in a room and sweating your butt off, and you're not even moving. It's like walking through water sometimes. So I don't like that so much. But I feel more alive when the sun is like right above your head and you can feel its heat penetrating all the way through you. I don't know why that is. Maybe I'm guessing it's the SAD thing. I don't know. But I feel more alive. The second thing about this summer, though, actually, I should backtrack a little bit. I should say that if you don't know, I switched jobs recently. I used to work at a factory where I worked 12-hour shifts that rotated between nights and days every 2 weeks, and I'm very happy. I have to say, I'm very happy that I'm not doing that anymore. It's nice being in the daytime all the time where I feel like an actual human being. But this summer, not unexpectedly, I wasn't too sure with my new job what summer would be like, and so far it seems like it's going to be really busy. So I don't know if I'm going to be reading as much this summer, so you might see things slow down a little bit. I'm not too sure. I hope not, but my hours have switched for the summertime, and I'm a little afraid that I'm not going to be able to read as much as I was during the regular year. So we'll see. Hopefully I don't have to slow down the reading at all. But if I have to, then it's just going to be the way it is. So summer is going to be busy. And that's fine. My vacation time is pretty low because I'm like the lowest dude on the totem pole, so to speak. And next year I'll have like a full 2 weeks, but this year I do have some vacation time. Works out to about almost a week, so that's good. That's at the end of July, so I can't wait for that. I don't think we're going to be doing anything because it's so small, but it is what it is, and I'm happy. I'm just happy I'm not in the factory anymore, to be quite honest with you. Second thing I want to mention is this book is now out for sale. It's Hungry Ghosts. Poems and Flash Fiction by me, Jason White, and it's very short. It's a chapbook, and it's the size of a chapbook. It's about 31 or 32 pages long. It has about 9 or 10 poems in it and 3 pieces of flash fiction. I don't know why I can't say flash fiction. Has 3 pieces of flash fiction, and you can get this on Amazon. I had originally wanted to make these on my own. I wanted to use my printer. I bought a printer specifically for this, and it just can't handle the job. It always messed up the cover, and it also messed up some of the words on the inside. The printer is really only good for maybe printing out some schoolwork for my son, maybe some documents for myself or Jen, my wife. So you can get this on Amazon, and if you want, you don't have to, because I was thinking of adding this as like a Patreon thing. I want to write a bunch more of these little chapbooks and maybe have them available for the Patreon. I'm not entirely sure about that yet. But speaking of books, I do have a book that I'm publishing on October the 10th, and I'm going to announce here a couple of things. Well, I already announced one thing, and that is I announced on Cliff Stark Gems channel. He had me on as a guest a few weeks ago, and we talked about this book. And I let the cat out of the bag that it's going to be Bigfoot horror stories. So there's 4 short stories, and they're all very loosely connected, and they're Bigfoot horror stories. And 2 of them are more novelette length. They're about 10,000 words, and the other 2 are about 5,000 words. So all in all, it's about 110 pages long, about 112 pages long, the book itself is. And not only that, I hired Gemma Amor to do the book cover art, and she has sent me some updates. She's in the progress of working on it now, and I'm going to just show you some of the ones with the color, what it's looking like right now, and this is very early on in the process. And so far I'm ecstatic that A, she's working on it, and B, it looks great. I absolutely love it. Alright, so you can look forward to that on October the 10th of this year, so far anyway. If there's any changes, I'll let you know, but I can't wait for everyone to get this book and to read these stories. I think this is some of my best short story work ever. I'm really proud of these stories, and I have some stories as to how these stories got written, and one of them you may have already read because it came out in it came out in Lurking in the Dark. This anthology right here, if you've read my story in here, then it's one of the stories in my collection. So yeah, I'll keep you all updated on that. I gotta move along here because my son is coming home. He was camping with some friends, and he's going to be here soon. So, the book club choice for July. So, Jason's Weird Reads book club is on the Fable app, and you can you go on the Fable app and just look up Jason's Weird Reads, and I'll be the only one there called that. And come and join us because this month we're reading Wild Spaces by S.L. Coney. Now, I've already read this. I mean, it was a very quick read. I read it very quickly, so I'll talk about that very shortly. But if you want to read it with us, just come along and join the book club on the Fable app. And now, what am I currently reading? I am currently reading The Wolves of the Kala by Stephen King. This is book. Is it book 5? Are we really on book 5? Of the Dark Tower series? I guess so. So it's part of the Dark Tower series, and if you're interested, I'm doing a series on the Weird Reads podcast, where Sin from Sin's Book Nook has joined me, and we're reading the entire series. She agreed to do this with me, and I'm ecstatic. We just finished recording last week, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago. I can't remember, but we recorded Wizard and Glass, which is book 4, and it's ready to go. You can look for that next weekend, depending, of course, when this is released. I am recording this on July the 7th, and I'm hoping to get it out this week. So it might be out in just a couple of days by the time you're viewing this. Let's hope anyway, right? So, so far, I'm about 200 pages in, and I'm really enjoying it. I'm so glad that we're back on the journey proper, I guess you could say. And as you know, Wizard and Glass kind of deviated from the journey to the Dark Tower to go like 30, 40 years into the past, into Roland's, his love life, so to speak. But it's a very important book, and I enjoyed. I read it like 20 years ago, and I didn't like it when I first read it. I did like it this time around. I liked it a lot more. It's a great book. But right now I'm on The Wolves of the Kala. One thing I'm glad about is it still has that Western feel to it. I'm also reading Meanspirited by Nick Roberts. This is I'm not too sure exactly what I have an idea. The book is basically about a teacher who's borderline, if not full out alcoholic. He likes to drink at night, and he wakes up with he wakes up feeling horrible. And he learns that one of his older students from, I think, like 5-10 years ago has died. And so he goes, he was like proud of this student. She wrote a poem in his class, and it's like one of the best poems he's read by one of his students. So he decides to print out that poem and put it in a nice frame, and he takes it over to the house where she passed away. And while he's there, he finds her dog that's basically been abandoned, and so he decides to adopt this dog. But there's something wrong with this dog. Something is following it. It's like some dark spirit or something. It's like the dog is haunted, and that's what I'm really interested in. And if you like Nick, this is my second by Nick Roberts that I've read. And if you are a fan of Nick Roberts, stay tuned. And man, it's like I'm full of ads here, aren't I? I'm like, if you like this, then just wait for that. Anyways, Nick Roberts is going to be on the channel, so I'm looking forward to chatting with him about Meanspirited here. Stay tuned for that. Now, moving on to the books I've read. As I said, this has been a busy summer, so the end of June and the beginning of July, things pretty much slowed down, and I only have 5 books here, but there's a couple reasons why. Some of these books, even though I loved them, took me a long time to read for some reason. And I'm going to start off with that. Like It Darker by Stephen King. For some reason, this took me close to 3 weeks, I think, to read. And I wasn't reading it like specifically. I was reading other things at the same time. But man, did I love this collection of short stories. I loved it so much you think I would have flew through it much faster. But I think this is one of Stephen King's best short story collections. I know some people who want the younger, more angry Stephen King, and he's not here, and that's okay. These stories are still phenomenal. I mean, they're so good. They're genius. Stephen King really shows his wide variety of writing in these books. He writes very wide types of stories, but he does return to the same types of stories. I don't know if I'm making any sense, but he does have like a variety here. And my favorites are, and I've talked about this before, so I'm just going to go over it briefly. Danny Coughlin's Bad Dream. A lot of people say that this is their favorite, and there's a good reason for it. It's very good. It's very gripping. It gets its little hooks into you, and you can't stop reading it. I think this is novella length. It's about 150 pages, and it's about a custodian in a school it's set for summer, and so he's with a small team, and they're going to be clearing out classrooms and stripping and waxing floors and doing deep cleans. And he has a bad dream one night. And the bad dream involves seeing a body behind a gas station nearby his, like in a town close to his town where he lives. And he decides to, when he wakes up, it's not like a regular dream where that just sort of fades away. A day later, it's still haunting him, and he can't stop thinking about it. So he decides to look it up on the computer, and he finds, through certain things he remembers in the dream, he's able to find the actual location of this gas station, and he's kind of freaked out that this place actually exists. So he goes and investigates, and sure enough, he finds the body there. And so he decides that he has to report this, but it's kind of weird how he came about it, right? So he decides to call it in anonymously, and that doesn't work out so well for him because the cops figure out where he is, and they question him, and he becomes like prime suspect. And one of the cops is a little bit loose in the head. He's slowly losing his marbles, so to speak, and he's on, I guess you could say he's stressed out, to say the least. He's seriously not a very nice cop. And he becomes obsessed with Danny Coughlin, and that's pretty much what the story is about. It's a gripping thriller, honestly, and I absolutely loved it. On Slide In Road, I really enjoyed that one. That was a favorite. The Turbulence Expert was very much like a Twilight Zone type story. There's a couple of Twilight Zone stories in here that I really enjoyed, but that's, I'd say, the best one. Rattlesnakes is really good. That's like a sequel to Cujo. Takes place like 30, 40 years after the events of Cujo, but it's a really, really good story. And also The Answer Man. The Answer Man, I would say, is one of those slice of life stories that only Stephen King can write and make you feel it. I absolutely loved it, and I can't recommend it enough. I think it's his best work. He's like flexing a muscle, man. He's flexing his writing chops, and he's doing a like fabulous job. And to think he's in the 70s, it's incredible. Next up, I read Every House is Haunted by Ian Rogers. Now, I was reading this for last month's book club choice, and I was reading it at the same time as You Like It Darker, and it's another short story collection of horror stories. Although this one isn't exactly all horror stories, neither was Stephen King's You Like It Darker, but I think you know what I mean. And I really made the mistake of reading it at the same time as You Like It Darker, because one thing, King hits all like my check marks for things I like reading in books and short stories and novels and whatnot, and that is characters. I like reading characters, character-based type fiction. Doesn't necessarily have to have a strong plot. In fact, sometimes it's better if it doesn't have a strong plot. I just really like character-driven stories, and Stephen King has always been that. And the Ian Rogers book, it's really good, but it's not Stephen King. Like nobody is Stephen King. So I think that kind of hampered my enjoyment of the stories in Every House is Haunted. But I did enjoy it. I really did enjoy it. And the one thing I really enjoyed about Every House is Haunted was how varied the stories were, because I would say the majority of them were horror stories, but there was some other genres sprinkled throughout this collection. And one of these stories, I can't remember which one, was made into a Netflix show. I'm not too sure if it's out yet, but I think it is. I don't know. I should have prepared better for this. But if you like short story collections, then I highly recommend this one as well. The characters just kind of felt flat for me sometimes, and I think that's why I'm talking about it the way it's like I'm talking about it like I didn't like it. No, I really enjoyed this. I wouldn't have finished it if I didn't like it, or I guess I would have, because it was a book club pick. But comparing anyone else's characters to Stephen King characters is difficult. Difficult to do. So definitely pick this one up. Just don't read it at the same time as Stephen King, if that makes any sense. I highly recommend Every House is Haunted by Ian Rogers. All right, next up I read Come With Me by Ronald Malfi. Now, I'm pretty sure this is my second Ronald Malfi book. It might be the third, though, because I can't remember. I have to wonder, around 2010 or so, was I drinking a lot? Because I don't remember reading this book, or not this book, but it was book number 3 in the Dark Tower series. I seem to have skipped it. And if you've watched these videos at all, you've heard this story, so I'm not going to reiterate. Just go to the last From the Hip, and you'll see that story. It seemed like I skipped that one, and now I have a vague memory of reading a Ronald Malfi book way back in 2010, 2011, but I can't remember what it was, or if I even did. But the reason why I remember this is because I was a member of a Goodreads group. I was a moderator at the time for the Horror Aficionados group, and we had him as a guest on there, and we were talking to him about this book that I can't remember. So I think I read another Ronald Malfi way back, but I can't remember for sure. But I know I've read 2 now. I've read Black Mouth, and now Come With Me. And Come With Me is a very emotional story. It's about a man who loses his wife to a shooting in a mall, and he's of course going through the steps of grief. This book is soaked with grief. And during the process of cleaning out her stuff, he comes across a receipt for a hotel that she stayed at, say like a year or two ago. I can't remember how long it was. And it was during a time when he was at a convention or something. So he was away from town too. So while he was away, she went somewhere. And so he starts thinking that maybe she was cheating on him. So he investigates. It's like a closure thing for him. But he finds that she wasn't cheating on him, that there was something far more sinister going on. I'll leave it at that. This book will keep you guessing. This book, although it's not a horror novel, it's a thriller. There is elements of, it feels like a horror novel. And I think it's because the main character is haunted by his wife in memory. And, you know, she might even be there a little bit as a ghost. I'm not going to say whether or not that's the case, because nothing really supernatural happens in this book. But she's there. She soaks this book. Soaking the right word? She haunts this book almost as though she's a main character, even though she's dead. And I love this book. This, along with Blackmouth, cements Ronald Malfi. I've said this, but I'm going to say it again. This cements Ronald Malfi as favorite author. I have a couple more of his now that I want to read. I have They Lurk. I also have Ghost Written. And also Small Town Horror, which I'm hoping to get to very soon. So bring on all the Ronald Malfi. All right, I next read Tell Me I'm Worthless by Alison Rumfitt. This book was difficult to read. It mostly because it's so grim and depressing. It's not a fun read by any means, but it made my top 10 for, so far for my 2024 reads. And that's because I think it has a very important message, and it's presented in a very, very eloquent and beautiful style, despite its anger. I love this book. It's you need to read it, especially if you're one of those people who want to leave a comment on my channel saying, stop doing this LGBTQ bullshit. If you want to leave a comment like that, then you definitely need to read this book, because people have left comments like that. So it's about a trans woman who's, you know what? I think it's best if you go into this blind. There's one thing that I really enjoyed about this book, though, is her ex-girlfriend is a lesbian woman who really reminded me of J.K. Rowling and her point of view against trans people. And that really kind of cleared up things for me as to why J.K. Rowling is on the wrong side of things. It's not that I needed clearing up. I kind of knew anyway. I just didn't know the specifics of it. And now I see exactly what it is thanks to this book. And I think it's important to read this book for things like that. This book really goes into the hardships of being an LGBTQ person, especially trans. But it goes into everyone's rights, from foreigners to foreign policy to just being on any of the LGBTQ areas, whether you're gay or you're trans or non-binary. It doesn't matter. Everyone is being prosecuted against, and the future is looking scary. And that's where this book sort of is looking at it. It really takes the idea of capitalism and control and religion, and how it's trying to control the masses. And of course, we're looking at it through the lens of one or two characters, and it kind of goes into why LGBTQ people suffer from the mental illness that they typically do. And it's not because they're LGBTQ, it's because of the way everything is set up and how everyone treats people who are LGBTQ. So it's important. It's important to try to understand why we need to accept everyone, no matter the package they come in. All right, moving on. Only two more books here. I also, speaking of Nick Roberts, as I mentioned earlier, I read Dead End Tunnel by Nick Roberts. This book, the first half of this book really felt like a young adult type of horror story, but then it goes into some really dark, fucked up areas that I wasn't expecting, and suddenly you see why it's considered more of an adult book. But it really has the YA feel to it. It involves like 12, 13-year-old kids. I think the main character is just turning 13. It's taking place on his birthday, and he's just turned 13, and he has a sleepover party with his friends, and he's got a brand new red bicycle. I think it takes place in 1999 or 1998, and so of course, 13-year-olds being 13-year-olds, they plan on sneaking out in the middle of the night where they're gonna get some cigarettes and booze and celebrate properly. And along the way, there's this weird tunnel that people have to drive through. I'm not going to explain it here. You have to read it, and you'll see what I mean. While they're traveling through this tunnel to get to the store where they can purchase this stuff, one of them goes missing, and I'll leave it at that. But the story, it gets dark, and there's definitely check your trigger warnings for this one, because something happened in this book that I wasn't expecting. It didn't trigger me or anything, but I was just like, whoa. And I can't wait to talk to Nick Roberts about that. And finally, I read Wild Spaces by S.L. Coney. This was, as I mentioned earlier, this month's July's pick for our book club read. And it was a lot of fun. It's very short. I listened to the audio. I borrowed it from my library, and it's only like 4 hours long. It's very quick. It's about a young boy who starts to suspect that his grandfather isn't entirely human, and he has a pet dog named Treat. And this book it's got that summer feel to it. It's got that summer coming of age story type feel to it, and I highly recommend you come along and read it with us. All right, so that is everything I wanted to talk about for this recent reads / wrap up / from the hip episode, and I want to thank you for coming along. If you're still here, how about you leave me some rainbows? How about we support the LGBTQ community even more? Even though it's July, we should be celebrating our LGBTQ readers and writers all year long. And so leave me some rainbows down there in the darkness, and I'll leave you some rainbows in return. Thank you for watching. Keep being creative and keep being weird, my friends. And I'll catch you guys in the next bookish video.